When James and Katie woke up, everything around them was consumed by absolute darkness. Even their breathing seemed muffled, and the only sound they could hear was their own heartbeat. No footsteps, no rustling, only an ominous void. But within this emptiness, where there was nothing but shadow, they felt something alive approaching. Are we alive? Katie whispered, her voice sounding alien in the dead silence. Yes, but I don't know how long we'll be, James replied, trying to stand. He felt his body grow heavier, as if he couldn't breathe. But his arms, despite their weakness, moved, pulling him out of the fog. At that moment, a figure appeared before them. Edward. He stood like a statue, his body still wrapped in shadow, but his face was now calm, almost lifeless, as if he were part of this place, not a person. "You," James started, but couldn't finish the sentence. "Do you want to free me?" Edward's voice echoed, but it didn't sound like his own. It sounded like the voice of the house, of the entity that had consumed him. "You can't. I'm already too far gone. I've become part of it. You will too." "No," James shouted sharply. His voice echoed in the void, but nothing changed. You can't be like this. Edward, you have to hear us." The shadow around Edward's body began to stir, and from his eyes the same cold, lifeless light burst forth. He slowly raised his hand, and the shadow seemed to expand, filling the entire basement. "You felt it too, didn't you?" Edward said, his voice growing more distorted, as if he were speaking not to them, but to someone else whose mind had been consumed. "You felt how it begins to squeeze you, how you're already becoming part of it." "I won't become part of your shadow," James replied with fury, and despite the terrifying reality, he felt his body beginning to come alive. "We will find a way to destroy this." But Edward didn't respond. Instead, his body suddenly contracted into the darkness, and the shadow around him became so dense that the whole room started to warp. Everything around them became unstable, and James realized they were at the very heart of the entity. At its core, the place where it fed on their fear and their lives. "We have to destroy it," James shouted, grabbing Katie's hand and pulling her toward the crack in the floor. I don't know how," Katie replied, her face twisted with fear. "How can we destroy something so huge?" "We have to destroy the source," James repeated, refusing to allow himself to doubt. "It all starts with this. We'll find a way, even if it's the last thing we do." They approached the crack. The light filtering through it was faint, almost invisible, like sparks in the night. But it was there. They knew this was their chance. This light was the core. The very moment they could destroy the house, they had to somehow pierce it, destroy the darkness. "You still won't be able to," Edward's voice echoed again, now sounding even more ominous. "I've been part of this for too long. You can't break what has become my essence." "We won't give up," James said. He felt a desperate strength arise from every word, from every part of his body, a power he didn't know he had. He didn't know what would happen next, but now there was no turning back. With every step toward the crack, the room around them warped more, as if the house was trying to tear them out of reality. Time ceased to exist. They couldn't feel day or night or the passing minutes, only shadow and fear. You won't take us," Katie screamed, her voice full of rage. She ran to the crack and struck it sharply with her fist. At that moment, the world around them exploded in a bright flash of light, and then all was consumed by darkness. and the light returned, James opened his eyes. He was outside, in the cold night air. A thick fog rolled along the ground, and the sky was covered with dense clouds. He lay on an old lawn, with Katie lying motionless beside him. He struggled to sit up, feeling the pain in his body from the strain. It was quiet around them. The sensation that they had escaped was strange. It felt as if something still wouldn't let them rest. This place was tied to what they had experienced, but now, here, they were safe, or at least relatively safe. Katie. His voice sounded muffled, and he gently placed his hand on her shoulder. She stirred, opened her eyes, and looked at him as if seeing him for the first time. Did we make it out?" Her voice was weak, but there was hope in it. "Yes," James said, glancing around. He saw the same house before him, but now its windows were darkened, and it looked abandoned and lifeless. All this time they had been trapped, but now the house was empty. They stood up and took steps away from the house, not looking back. James knew that this nightmare wouldn't end for them forever, but at least for now, at least for a moment, they were free. And then, just as they were almost beyond the old yard, they heard a sound, very faint, barely audible, and it was a voice, familiar, but distorted. "You haven't left. You will stay." With those words, the light disappeared, and once again they were plunged into dark emptiness. When the light disappeared, they found themselves in the dark emptiness again. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just a shadow or mere emptiness. It was something far more sinister. The cold emanating from this dark abyss was even stronger, and it seemed to seep into their very souls, squeezing their hearts and draining their strength. "No," whispered Katie, her voice barely audible in the unbearable silence. Are we back here again?" James couldn't answer immediately. He stood up, his body exhausted, and it felt like he could no longer move. But still, despite the despair, he felt they couldn't just give up. This is a trap." His voice trembled, but was determined. "We haven't escaped." The shadow around them began to tighten, as if reacting to their realization. Its contours became clearer, and once again from the depths of the abyss came the same voice they had heard before, when they stood before what was once Edward. "You cannot leave." The voice was low, as if it came from the house itself. "This place, it will not release you. You will be here again and again, in an endless cycle, until you become part of us." James felt his hands begin to shake. He looked at Katie and saw on her face that she was giving up, that doubts were pulling her toward the darkness. She didn't believe they could escape, and that was dangerous. "No," he said, grabbing her hand. "We can't give up. This is what the house wants. It wants us to break." But Katie stood motionless. She looked into James's dark eyes, as if something heavy was pulling her down. I can't anymore, James. I don't see a way out. We can't beat this." The shadow began to encircle them, pulling tighter with each passing moment, its cold penetrating their souls. And then, as if it sensed their weakness, the entity spoke once more. "You think you can defeat me, that you can destroy me. I have existed for centuries. I have survived many attempts, many lives. I am the first. I am the shadow itself. I don't believe this is all there is," James said firmly. "If you were the first, then you are something living. And if you are living, then there's a way to destroy you." Suddenly, the shadow before them began to flicker, and from its dark depths, ghostly figures emerged. the souls of those who had once been trapped in the house. Faces filled with terror and fear began to move around James and Katie, trying to influence their minds. You will become part of us. We are not survivors. We are forgotten. But you, James, you were strong. You still made it here. Why can't you just give up, like all the others? James gritted his teeth. He knew the house was trying to break them. He knew this shadow would play on their weaknesses. But he remembered William's words, "Don't trust what you see." "We're not leaving until we find a way to destroy you." His voice was calm and resolute. "You can't defeat us." With anger, the shadow lunged at them, but in that moment, James realized the shadow was a living entity connected to the house, but it was nothing more than a reflection of fear, the dark side of something that could be destroyed. He looked at Katie. There was doubt in her eyes, but also the desire for freedom. "Katie," he shouted, "we can't defeat it unless we fight together. We can't destroy it if we don't free ourselves from fear. Remember, we found its heart before. We did it once, and we can do it again." Katie looked at him, her eyes filled with light. She understood too. Their only strength was in believing they could win. They had to free themselves from fear. At that moment, they simultaneously moved toward the center of the shadow, where it thickened, and despite all its efforts, they broke through. Inside, right at the heart of the entity, they felt the dark power begin to weaken. "Yuba-sama won't destroy me," echoed the entity's voice, but the closer they got to the center, the weaker the voice became. James, squeezing Katie's hand, said one word: "Light."